A lot of the conversation that we have on this program can get very technical, and it can be very weedy and very involved, and there's a lot to it. You know, when we talk about the subversion or occupation of our government, there's a lot to that. There's a lot to the talk about the occupation of our entire society, because it's really a whole lot more than just the halls of Congress or the White House. So this is a conversation that's been occurring online as well. I mean, the discourse obviously has changed, and I think perhaps no other event in our lifetime, at least mine, has done as much to wake up the average person, especially the average American, to the evils of the Jew as Israel's war in Gaza. It's a genocidal death march that shows no signs of stopping. It just keeps getting worse. And we've all watched as these Jews have bombed entire cities into oblivion. They have buried women and children in piles of rubble and twisted steel for nearly 2 years straight. And now we're all watching as the Palestinians starve to death. This has been going on now since the start of the war, but it's reaching a boiling point. At the very beginning, Netanyahu's regime said that the Palestinians are human animals. They'll get no food, they'll get no water, they'll get no medicine, they'll get no electricity, they'll get nothing. And that anyone who tries to help them will be killed. And when he said that, he meant it. Every single day, Israel attacks aid workers alongside sick and starving Palestinians in search of help. They tell the world that it's not happening. But they're so proud of themselves that oftentimes they film their war crimes and then they post them to the internet for everyone to see. And once we see them, the Jew continues lying. Whatever you just watched, that was fake. Yeah, but it's not fake. No, it's very real. These Jews are a bunch of murderous genocidal war criminals, and they're proud of it. That's why they go out and block aid convoys and record it and post it online and celebrate it. Watch. Yeah, in case you didn't notice, those people, those are Israeli civilians. And they're celebrating because starving and raping and killing Palestinians is like a fun family activity for these demons. They bring out the kids, they bring out the grandparents, and they attack humanitarian aid workers and food delivery sites for fun. As a matter of fact, today alone, at least 15 Palestinian civilians have been murdered by Jews at food aid sites. 15. And the real number is probably a whole lot more than that. They're doing this every single day. They're starving kids. They're killing kids, whether by starvation or other means. They're killing parents, young people, old people, anyone who shows up to designated locations in search of the food that the rest of the world is trying to send them. And they're doing all of this right in our faces. In the faces of the entire world on video, over and over and over again, every single day. But Benjamin Netanyahu, he comes out, he looks right in the camera, and he says, none of this has ever happened.
There is no starvation in Gaza, no policy of starvation in Gaza. And I assure you that we have a commitment to achieve our war goals. We'll continue to fight till we achieve the release of our hostages and the destruction of Hamas's military and governing capabilities. They shall be there no more. We shall not have any more of these massacres. We shall not have any more of these monstrosities. We stand for human freedom and human life, and that is not commensurate with Hamas or with Iran, other Iranian proxies. We have fought this battle together. We shall win it together.
He's trying to psyop you, obviously. He's trying to gaslight you into not believing your own lying eyes. Believe the Jew, not yourself. That's Netanyahu's message, and it seems to be working on a whole lot of idiotic people in this country. But not nearly as many as he would like. We've discussed these figures before. We'll discuss them again right now. Just a decade ago, a supermajority of American audits revealed that adults supported Israel, but now that number is dwindling. Not just dwindling, it's collapsing. And according to this new Gallup poll, just 32% of Americans now support Israel's genocidal war in Gaza. 32%. I can't believe that 32% could still see what's going on here and support it. But that number is dwindling. A few months back, people thought that it was a really big deal with less than half of Americans supporting it. Now it's less than a third. So the American people, they're tired of turning on their TVs or opening up their computer screens or looking on their phones and seeing emaciated, tormented babies being blown to smithereens or slowly murdered through starvation or any other travesties that the Palestinian people are being forced to suffer through. And when people see that, they realize something. They realize the Jew would just as soon slaughter Americans or Greeks or Germans as they would Palestinians. Once they're through with them, where are they going to go next? They'll move on. And they won't stop until they're forced to stop. Otherwise, they'll use every means at their disposal to subjugate and kill the Goyim. The Jew believes that the Palestinians are living in constant violation of the Noahide laws, and because of that, they must be killed. That's the penalty for violating Noahide laws: death. And that's exactly what they have in store for us. Why wouldn't they? And our brothers and sisters in Europe and elsewhere. Congress is working on it right now. Your open-air concentration camp won't be Gaza. It'll be any town USA with a Palantir surveillance state installed as Project Esther's Noahide enforcers scan your every move. You'll be picked off the street, deported to a Salvadorian prison or alligator Alcatraz for naming the Jew, for questioning Israel, or God forbid, criticizing, in violation of the working definition of anti-Semitism. Just take one look, just one look in 4K on X or anywhere else. Just look at what these Jews are doing to babies in Gaza, and then ask yourself, what will they do to us? What would they do to your family? We all know what the answer is, if you're being bare naked honest. And so does Dr. Michael Rechtenwald. He has been crushing the Jewish Hasbaros over on X. For more discussion on this, he joins us now. Thank you so much for coming back. We always appreciate having you. 32%. I don't know if that's good news or if I'm still scratching my head. Why are 32% of Americans still supporting this genocide that they can see in 4K live every day?
Well, some percentage of that are the Jews themselves. There's.
So I've been told my whole life that they represent 0.2% of the world's population. There can't be that many of them.
It's not that many, but almost all 3,700 synagogues in the United States are Zionist. There's only like 30 synagogues that are non or anti-Zionist. So they've got almost complete support of the Jewish American contingency, and then of course there's the dispensationalists, the Christian Zionists, and that's the lion's share of that 33% is the Christian Zionists who've been taught a false theology, dispensationalism, who believe that they need to establish the third temple in order to bring the Messiah. This is a complete bastardization of Christianity, of course, and it is a blasphemy as well. It's unbelievable. So that's where that support's coming from, I think, is the Christian Zionist contingent.
Well, we could dissect that. We could talk about whether or not that's ignorance or stupidity, like low IQ, genetic stupidity. I don't know. You can't look at this and not see it. You can't hear these things and discover these things and then unhear them or unlearn.
This is the viral warm water.
And pretend like this isn't happening. I know that I can't. So we could talk about to what you attribute that to, but what about as it's playing out right now? We have Project Esther. We have the Noahide enforcement, it seems, happening at the executive level in the White House, directly from the Oval Office. From day one, the executive orders to protect the Jew in America. How far must this go before Americans realize that they're losing their country to a subversive, arbitrary construct, a 1948 founded nation state that called itself Israel for the purpose of duping 2.4 billion people that identify as Christians? Oh yeah, can't criticize them. Those are God's chosen people.
Yeah, this, you see, I'm not sure that they can come around because they see this slaughter, this genocide, the starvation as part of God's plan. They think this is part of the messianic eventuality that must happen. They think this is prophesied, and they think this has to take place. And so they bless all this unholy activity as if it's part of God's divine plan. But if you tell them Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, not the bomb droppers or children starvers," they don't know what to say. They're completely under Zionist psyop, which is the Schofield Bible, the whole Christian Zionist movement and so forth was completely engineered by Jews, by Zionists, and that's what they've fallen prey to. I don't know. It's almost like a Zio trance. It's hard to see them getting out of it. And if you look at the calls of Congress, the constant genuflection and obedience and constant patronage of Jews day in, day out. Every day you see one or two or three major figures of this administration prostrating themselves before Jewish interest and power. And that's what really we're dealing with. We're dealing with a broad network. Zionism is not strictly located in Israel. It is a Jewish network, a worldwide Jewry, who have a ton of money, who have control over the media, who have control over the academic institutions, and have control over the public mind. And that's how they're pulling this off. It's beyond words. We've seen some defectors at this late date after, of course, the possibilities for Palestine as a nation are so bleak that it's beyond words. These people have not an infrastructural element left in the country. They've destroyed everything. It's totally decimated, totally blown away. So,
I mean, I've seen Donald Trump acknowledge this decimation. I've seen him point to these conditions and say, these are unlivable conditions. These people have to get out of there and never go back. Why doesn't he acknowledge who it is that made it that way?
He doesn't do it. Yesterday, he said they're starving. He finally admitted that they are starving, never admits his role in it, and never admits that this is part of a policy on the part of Israel. They have made it very clear. Ben-Gvir, Israel Katz, of course, Netanyahu himself, and countless other Knesset members and members of the media and the entire Israeli society, which is psychopathic through and through. They have all said that's the plan. And so then they go on and deny it just after really recently saying it. Ben-Gvir on the 25th of July said there'll be no so-called humanitarian aid. We'll shut it all off. So they can't lie enough. It's unbelievable. So their hospital is falling apart. I do believe that their public relations, they're in a shambles. I think Israel is finished. What that means for the worldwide Jewish network of, Kabbalists, as it were, what that means for that and Jewish power in general is a good question. I think that's really what we're going to be looking at is what happens after Israel is so delegitimated that it finally falls. What happens then to worldwide Jewish power?
Well, I mean, I think obviously they'll clamor for war, and they will, of course, again, play the ultimate victims, and they will say, Israel has been conquered, and, this goes against biblical prophecy, and you'll have these Zio-tranced, as you call them, Christians, like picking up the sword and wielding for war, getting ready for war on behalf of this nation state that no longer exists. I mean, I see it as these people are never going to give up. I believe that they've agreed to mutual destruction. Before they will, celebrate on one end or acknowledge defeat on another.
Yeah, they have the Samson option, of course, which is a basic threat that if they're threatened existentially, they'll blow up everything. They have nuclear weapons pointed at major cities throughout the West, Paris, London, New York, etc., which they could fire off if, in fact, they're under what they would deem to be existential threat.
And why are they allowed to do that? Why is Israel the only country on the face of the planet that's allowed to have an undeclared nuclear program?
Well, because they are in charge of the world. the people that are running Israel or running the rest of the world, the banking, the media, etc. So they're able to get away with this.
I want to have that conversation. We're going to do that with Dr. Reckenwald on the other side of the break. Stand by. Break. Dr. Reckenwald said Israel controls the world. This is why they are allowed to have the world's only undeclared nuclear program. They have warheads pointed in the direction of every large metropolitan city, all the capital cities, where all the infrastructure is, where the heads of government, the heads of state reside, where decisions are made all throughout the West. Because Israel has the control, Dr. Reckenwald says that's because Israel controls the world. And so we want to know why. I mean, for me, it's very obvious that it's blackmail, sexual blackmail, pedophilia. And so the mutual destruction is not only just the Samson option, but it's also the proverbial, blackmail weapon that's being pointed at the heads of those that pretend to run governments throughout the West. What's your take?
Yeah, I think the Epstein list is a big part of it, and the other probable, blackmail schemes. That I don't believe that's the only one. And also, I think just the immense power that the Jewish network has in destroying people, and we've probably both experienced their attempts at doing that to ourselves. I know that they have attempted to do that to me. And they can do it to any critic. They can just try to destroy you using all their means. Recently, I think it was a teacher somewhere in the United States who said something about, Israel and criticized it and was fired. I mean, this is so you have all these sentinels of surveillance working for these Jewish people. And the network goes into the Goyim world. I mean, they have all of these minions that are willing to go after you on their behalf. It's unbelievable what power they've got, and it's very surreptitious as well. It's not all overt, although some of it is. It's not all overt. They're doing a lot of surreptitious undermining of people, and I think people are scared largely of Jewish power.
32% still support it. We've described who those people are. Project Esther is a 34-page document that I think that everyone that watches this show should read. I'll stress that again. Inside of Project Esther, the authors of this from, the purported conservative think tank, the Heritage Foundation, the authors of Project 2025, they lay out a 2-year timeline that says when there is a president in power in the United States that is sympathetic, to the Jew, to the nation state of Israel, the modern state of Israel, that's when they will enact this. Well, who better than the $200 million AIPAC man, Netanyahu's puppet in the Oval Office, who married his daughter off to a subversive Jew and who subverted the entire first term President 45 administration. So, this timeline makes it appear that things are going to get consequentially more dangerous in the very near future. Do you agree?
Yes, I think we're looking at, as you said, the implementation and enforcement of the Noahide laws, the complete surveillance of every individual, tracking and tracing their every move, their every utterance, and their every social media post. And I believe that already. I believe X is probably being used as a trap, as a means to elicit opinion and then classify the various people that are making statements. So they probably have all of us classified already.
Yeah, and Project Esther actually defines what that classification is. You would be classified as an HSO or an HSN, a Hamas support organization or Hamas support network. And so that would then draw the parallel, because I think the problem would be this. If Noahide law enforcement were to just arbitrarily take place randomly and suddenly in this country, I think that then there would be a lot of these Ziotranced Christians that would say, wait a second, what is a Noahide law? But then they would compare them to commandments, and some of them would say, well, ideologically, I align with these things, yes. Which is ironic, because the same Christians have been pacified and basically self-neutered and ineffective in fighting, to get the Bibles back into our schools. But, Noahide enforcement will be okay because that sounds somewhat like the commandments, and it could be used in that way. Look, we're bringing Jesus Christ back into the schools. These are, and into society, because intentionally they kind of mirror some of the commandments that Christians are used to reading out of their Schofield Bibles, right?
Yes, except for one in particular. I mean, there's probably more than one, but one in particular makes it clear that Christianity itself would not be tolerated because it's deemed idolatry.
Right.
So that would be off the table. So if those Christians, so-called, now I don't believe they are Christians. I should put Christian Zionism or Zionists in quotation marks because they're not Christians. If those so-called Christian Zionists would get wind of that, I would think that should be enough to warn them that they're going to be under extreme oppression by the Jewish elite.
Or they just falsely apply it and say, yeah, I don't believe that you should worship a false idol either. I believe that you should worship Jesus Christ. And because of this Judeo-Christian psyop that has been run, despite the fact that Judaism, Talmudic Judaism, is inverse of Christianity because these people hate Jesus Christ, they killed him and believe that he is in hell boiling in a pot of semen and excrement and that his mother Mary was a... So, but yet still, these are the Judeo-Christians in America that are fighting for this Judeo-Christian alliance and this Judeo-Christian acceptance and promotion throughout society.
Yeah, they also, I think they're fanning the flames of Islamophobia. I hate to use terms like that because they're usually leftist words, but they really are trying to flame the fans that it's not Jews coming after us, it's Islam, and they're going to put us under Sharia law. I mean, this is ridiculous because these people have no power. And they say, well, why don't you point out the Muslims and what that they want to kill us all and all this? I say, because first of all, they're not the ruling class. The ruling class is Jewish. It's a Jewish elite, so-called, and I'd put that in quotes too, elite. I don't find anything elite about them. The only thing that makes them so-called elite is their utterly inordinate power. So, yeah, I mean, I'm worried about those people that have the power to put me under such oppressive laws and probably setting up a violation. I'm certain I've already violated all of them, except for, maybe they're ones that do accord with Christianity, but for the most part, they don't. This is just an imperious, rabbinical, totalitarian regime.
But the Islamophobia thing and the language that they are using, that's what coincides with the enforcement mechanism and draws the bridge from Noahidism, Talmudic Judaism, into governmental enforcement and the ability and the justification to use the strong arm of that, occupied government's enforcement arm, which is the FBI or the DOJ, to now come down on you for that Noahide law enforcement. So there's, a circular kind of infrastructure that has been set up here that draws the parallels and then wields the power to those that could enforce the spiritual ideological beliefs of the mortal enemy of Christianity. And so that would be Project Esther. And that, when you're classified as a Hamas support organization, so now you do align with these Muslims and these extremist radical Islamists that want to usher Sharia law into the United States, which obviously, I mean, that's not an aspiration of theirs. So it's playing the same boogeyman in different vernacular, inserted into Project Esther, so that a large group of Americans will champion your prosecution for being critical of this nation state.
Exactly. So just like they did with the Patriot Act, it's a way of ensnaring people and putting us all under more totalitarian conditions. And let's be clear. This is rabbinical totalitarianism, which is what the rabbis practiced for thousands of years. They have been totalitarian to their own people, by the way, in their own societies for time immemorial. I mean, for at least 3,000 years, rabbis have been total tyrants, and they want to put us all under this kind of tyranny.
How far do you think this goes, Dr. Rechtenwald? I mean, obviously, you're engaged. You wouldn't be if you didn't think that there was a path to victory. I wouldn't be here fighting every day if I didn't think that obviously we were going to win. So we're in these extraordinary times where we're reaching kind of a breaking point. I can feel the pressure cooker, and my discernment is telling me that. It's not a gut feeling. It's God telling me. So where do you think this goes and how quickly? I see the timelines that have been laid out, by the Sanhedrin and the letters that have been written to Trump, and obviously his acknowledgement. And he's in receipt of $200 million, and he's implicated in the Epstein files, and they have all of the power because they hold the notes on the Trump real estate investment endeavors. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, like in every way that you could possibly imagine a sitting president of our country being captured, Donald Trump is absolutely the best choice for the Jew. And that's why they funded him over they did Kamala Harris or, they would any other president. And then, his successor, obviously, is President Palantir. You mentioned the Patriot Act and how Americans kind of cheered that on to their own demise and detriment. Now it's like escalated to something even more. This is the super surveillance state. This is Palantir. And, Peter Thiel is, J.D. Vance's kind of Lou Pearlman to the Backstreet Boys. He made him. And so, it's that that faction that would love to see somebody get to Trump, because then they could really escalate this thing. That's what my feeling is. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think that's 100% true. And what they do is they use the Hegelian dialectic to bring about their ends. And that is they create the problem, then they create a reaction to the problem, then they come along with the so-called solution, which is always worse than the problem itself. So the problem they're saying is now mass immigration, which they caused. And then they create this outrage about it. And then they come along with the solution. Palantir, total surveillance police state. This is how they operate. As much as they hate Germans, they base a lot of their tactics on German philosophy, and Hegel in particular.
They created the problem with Al-Qaeda. They funded it, really dreamed it up, created it, gave it weapons, and then gave you the option to fight back against it, which, of course, we cheered it on. The same thing with ISIS, the same thing with Hamas, the same thing with Hezbollah, the same thing with COVID-19. They create the disease, they create the weapon, they fund it, they weaponize it, they mobilize it, and then they force you to cheer on the treatment for it, the COVID-19 clot shot, the bioweapon, all of your taxes, forever wars, the blood of American young white Christian men being spilled on battlefields that 20 years later, these young men who are fighting there weren't even alive or were infants when the towers came down in New York, have no real idea why it is that they're fighting, much less able to conceive that the whole idea, if they did understand it, was built on lies. And that, in fact, that's not why they're there fighting. Right. But they're there fighting, at the behest of the Jew for Israeli expansion aspirations and to accomplish the task and the goal of Greater Israel.
Exactly. And that's, I think, also, talking about war or so-called war. In the case of Gaza, it's not a war, it's a slaughter. But in the case of Ukraine, I believe they're also behind that. And, you've had Zelensky talk about Ukraine as big Israel. So they're looking for another homestead. This would be another Israel based on total militance towards all of its neighbors. They have this ancient hatred for Russians, which really goes back all the way to the Khazars, I believe. And probably, of course, the settlement in Russia before the Bolshevik Revolution, the Pale of Settlement. So they have this hatred for Russians, and they will do this in every scenario. I guess what I'm most worried about in the near future is some sort of false flags to divert attention away from Israel's genocide to further, vilify so-called terrorists and so-called Hamas supporters as if people that oppose their villainy must be Hamas supporters. And the other thing I wanted to get out real quickly is that the moral inversions that they undertake are just astounding. They are committing mass murder, slaughter, and starvation, and yet those who point it out are deemed the bad guys. This is incredible what they try to do. They call you the monster. So they always use Darvo, they use the, deny, attack, and reverse the victim and oppressor. That's one of their major tactical maneuvers. So they'll always call you out and say you're doing exactly what they're doing. It's unbelievable. So that's their whole psychology. They've been mastering this for decades.